Subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon on the YouTube app to never miss an update from the Beverage Trade Network.
So my name's Simon Field, Master of Wine, qualified in 2001, working for Berry Brothers and Rudd for 20 years. I was the buyer for many regions in France, key amongst them the Rhone Valley, Champagne, the Midi and the Loire Valley. I was also a buyer for Spanish wines, joined the Gran Orden de Caballeros de Vino in 2012. Left Berries last year to plough my own furrow, and now doing quite a lot of consultancy and writing and really enjoying it. I think if you're entering the UK market, you have to have a distinctive voice. The quality of the product, the inherent quality has to be there. You have to hit the relevant price point. Presentation is all. The aesthetic, given the multiplicity of availability, is so fundamental these days. Of course, there are many different routes to market, but in each different route, every consumer will be looking for something a little bit different, maybe a little bit special, and above and beyond the brand names they recognise, you will have to offer added value to offer something just a little bit different. It's the everlasting debate in wine is to what extent can one objectify quality, and fundamentally wine appreciation is subjective. How much acidity does one appreciate? How much tannin does one want in a red wine? White wine, do you want a fresh style, or do you want something that's a little bit more maturity and therefore perhaps complexity? So quality is something of a movable term, but fundamentally everything has to be harmonious and in balance. I think that's really key to all wines, and there is inevitably a link to price point, and that link is more and more relevant as the market becomes tighter and more competitive. I think so. On trade, off trade, you do reach a certain price point where reputation perhaps supersedes everything, and there you're entering the spectrum of the luxury goods market. And at that point, often the more expensive a wine is, the more it's valued. So to know the quality of something and the value of nothing is quite relevant at that end of the market. But in the really tight mid-price points, the mid-range, you really have to get it right on presentation, on the balance of style that we've talked about, the whole look, the feel, and of course where you position it. It's always been in the vanguard stylistically, so the trend for Provence Rosé probably hit the UK market first and then the US market. Lots of New World wines made a big impact on the value and on the intensity and power, rich, ripe flavours. And then there was a little bit of a backlash and more a quest for subtlety, more for nuanced styles within wines. So there is no simple answer. There's so many different things people are looking for. You take sparkling wines, for example, and the rise of Prosecco. It's fascinating to compare that with how champagne works in the UK market stylistically. Essentially, it's best to have both, but the brand message is fundamental. I think so. This morning we were lucky enough to taste an excellent range of carvers, for example, that ran the gamut in terms of price points, and we were tasting them knowing their price point but not aware of their presentation until after the tasting, and the correlation between price point and the aesthetic or the look wasn't always immediately obvious. Therefore, some of the wines, when you saw the bottle, you thought, my goodness, the quality that's in the bottle is much better than what is put on the label. So it's getting that correlation right, and obviously for a lesser priced wine to have a more classic or a more seductive presentation will increase sales. The inverse of this, of course, is to undersell a very expensive wine. But again, it's horses for courses. It's what the consumer is looking for, and you have different aspirations in the on and off trade. I think so, especially given the competition, supermarket, independent wine merchants. But different people are looking for different things. If you're looking for a named Côte d'Rhône village, do you want a really classic label with a crest or an insignia? Do you want an embossed heavy bottle? Or do you want something that's fairly simple and straightforward to reflect the lack of pretension that hopefully is captured in the wine itself, and therefore is a very good value product? Getting every part of this jigsaw fitted together that is a challenge, and fundamentally a lot of these gentlemen are winemakers firstly and wine sellers latterly, but to sell the wine successfully one really does have to focus more and more on how it looks, and that's why I've enjoyed this competition today, because one is making an equation between the aesthetic and the presentation and what's in the bottle, but only having tasted the wine firstly to make a qualitative judgment, and then to see how that is influenced by how the bottle actually looks. I think so, yeah. One is aware that a lot of the branded propositions are fundamentally under the umbrella of the same ownership, and of course the idea has been to have multiplicity of presentation, different looks, different styles. As more and more smaller, more individual winemakers come to the market, not relying on this umbrella, they will have their own voice, their own say, their own methodology of translating what's in the bottle to how they want that to be perceived by the customer. So it's an exciting time, and I think it's possibly a time when the big corporations perhaps will have less sway and less influence, and I think that can only be good for the sector in general. I do love Loire red wines, wines that are major on crisp acidity, not too much extraction, fruit character. You find that mirrored in, I don't know, the Spanish wines, Mencia wines from Bieto, some of the village Beaujolais I really like, and all around the world, New World wines are often achieving that style categorization as well. So always looking for things that are new. We've just tasted a wonderful Mondeuse in our tasting this morning. It's very different, rather incongruous in the lineup of Côte d'Rhône, but it stood out and it held its ground despite being lighter of flavour, because everything was perfectly balanced, it was beautifully perfumed, and that's indicative of the sort of wine that will hopefully expand the wine message throughout the world.